Yeah, stay prepared for the up and downs. Life is like a seesaw.
What's going on, guys? Just another critic here. Welcome back to the channel. Just got done with my Ohio State Wisconsin predictions as well as the LSU Auburn prediction. Pretty much the two biggest games of the week with the biggest college football playoff implications, as they say. If you want to check those out, links will be in the description. Or if you just want to pop over to the channel, you can find the predictions there as well. With that, we're doing my college football Week 9 upset alert picks. And so with that, we're starting with Penn State at Michigan State for very simple reasons, man. If you look at this game, whenever these two teams play, it typically comes down to the wire. In most recent seasons, Michigan State has been on the winning end. They are on a 2-game winning streak right now versus Penn State, playing at home with some talented guys on defense. I understand Michigan State hasn't been hitting on any type of cylinder, right, on offense, right? Brian Lewerke and some of those wide receivers, and really just offensively, they haven't looked good at all. Penn State, on the other hand, I do think their defense is going to find a lot of success in this game. But I think whenever you play, at Michigan State, that's just always a tough game to go into their home stadium and win convincingly. So even if Penn State wins this game, I don't think it'll be a blowout. As well as coming into the season, Michigan State's defense was expected to be one of the elite defenses in the country. And while they haven't lived up to that potential, they still have those guys on that side of the ball, not only on the defensive front, but as well as at the linebacker position with Joe Bacci. And so really with their season essentially over, right? They're not really playing for anything big. They're not playing for any trophies. Big Ten championships already out of reach. College football playoff conversation was already gone after the loss to Arizona State. This is one of those games that, hey, we still have a chance to go out there and prove ourselves that we're one of the best in the country. And I think that's something that Michigan State's defense is going to want to do against Penn State. And so, like I said, Penn State should certainly win this game, but just the way college football plays out and the way this rivalry has gone throughout the past few years, with Michigan State finding success in the past 2 seasons with the 2-game win streak, I think Michigan State has a real chance to pull off the upset at home, especially Penn State coming off a tough win against Michigan at home. With that, moving along, my second upset alert pick is Washington State at Oregon. Now, I understand this is a home game for Oregon, but with Oregon, the way that they looked against Washington, right, the Huskies, Jacob Eason pretty much had his way for the most of the game. And I actually think Washington State brings even bigger threat in their passing game compared to Washington. Not necessarily because of the skilled players that they have or their quarterback. I think their quarterback is good enough. I don't think he's amazing. I think he's what's that word I'm looking for? He's made by the system, right? That Mike Leach has put in place. Anthony Gordon, that is. And they've got Max Borghi, who I think is probably most comparable to Christian McCaffrey, and he's only a sophomore right now. So Washington State, I just think their scheme will give the Oregon defense a lot of issues. This game will probably end up being a shootout, and I think Washington State has a legitimate chance to pull off the upset versus Oregon. It's just one of those games that people aren't expecting Oregon to lose it. Right, coming off a nice win versus Washington, they're looking good. Their playoff hopes are slowly trending up. Not very high, but it's trending up as long as they continue to win. But yeah, I think Washington State has a legitimate chance to go into Eugene, Oregon, and really surprise a lot of people and pull the upset because of the scheme that they bring and how Oregon's defense showed some holes in that secondary just a week ago. Moving along, I have Oklahoma at Kansas State. I think this has the potential to be something very similar like we saw a week ago with Wisconsin and Illinois. But really statistically, if you take a look at Kansas State, they've played pretty well in pass defense, holding teams like Mississippi State to 151, Oklahoma State 153, Baylor 268, and TCU to 138 in the pass game. Their real weakness has been in the run game, right? Allowing roughly 200 yards a game. 201 to Mississippi State, 373 to Oklahoma State, and 158 to Baylor, 228 to TCU. However, if Kansas State can limit those explosive plays through the air, right? Because like I said, statistically they've played well as far as limiting really anyone from going off against them in the pass game, just averaging defense, just allowing 152 pass yards per game. They might have a chance at legitimately upsetting Oklahoma. Now, do I think that's going to happen? No, but I said, I think this is just one of those sleeper games that Oklahoma may just come in unfocused and not really looking at Kansas State as a legitimate opponent. I understand Jalen Hurts may look at K-State differently based on his mindset, but at the same time, most guys on that Oklahoma team aren't going to be coming into games with the same approach as Jalen Hurts. Right, because he's a product of built by Bama, right? The Alabama system, that Alabama mindset. But with that said, Oklahoma is probably going to find a lot of success on the ground, but at the same time, that runs the clock. That means longer drives, and so if K-State can keep this low scoring, under 40, I think they have a real chance to turn this into a game. With that, K-State versus Oklahoma State, K-State at home, under new head coach, it can happen. I really see the potential of it being a closer game than many people think, and even the potential, like I said, for it to be a upset alert pick. Moving along, Iowa at Northwestern. I think Iowa, just the way they haven't, in the past 3 games, or 2 or 3 games, they haven't really been able to play very well against better defenses, especially Nate Stanley. They just played Purdue and were only able to put up 26 versus a Purdue team that is just plagued with injuries on both sides of the ball. And Northwestern, while they got absolutely slaughtered, right, by Ohio State, they still have some guys on that defensive side of the ball that can make some plays against lesser talented teams like Iowa. And like I said, Nate Stanley struggled versus better defenses like Penn State as well as Michigan, and only putting up 3 points versus Michigan, and I believe it was 12 points versus Penn State. Northwestern, on the other hand, they're just one of those teams that are typically tough to play at home. Iowa, like I said, they don't really have a guy in the backfield that's going to give you consistent carries. Right now, they are pretty much running back by committee, rotating through about 3 different guys. They do have a big-time impact player in number 6, Marset Smith. And Northwestern, on the other hand, that's the only thing that I would have to question is where they're going to find their offense. Because they're down to their 3rd quarterback. Their running back has been all right. He hasn't been amazing. And then, being at your third quarterback, it's like, I understand he's been around the system for a long time, but he's still really just getting those snaps under his belt. So while I do think Northwestern at home can upset Iowa, it's just more so the biggest question I have is where their points will come from. But I still think Northwestern will make this a game and has the potential to pull off the upset versus Iowa. Last game, the last upset alert pick I have is Notre Dame at Michigan. This is going to be in the big house. Notre Dame, I'm just not sold on this team. Ian Book, I just don't think he's, I don't think he's a top quarterback. I don't think he can sit in the pocket and pick apart a team like Michigan. And I think Michigan has the personnel to contain a guy like Ian Book, because Ian Book loves to scramble. He loves to leave the pocket. He loves to make plays on the outside of the hashes, right? And they got guys like Khaleke Hudson that are going to probably spy him and pretty much look to shut down any any thought of him leaving the pocket. And so if they can keep him in the pocket, force him to try and pick them apart, which I don't think is a strength of his, I think Michigan is going to be able to contain Notre Dame for most of the game. But at the same time, Notre Dame's defense has been playing well, but I still think they have some holes in their secondary. But at the same time, those Michigan wide receivers, like I talked about in the Penn State matchup, they have a matchup advantage with the size and physicality of those wide receivers. And I think Zach Charbonnet is also starting to find his rhythm, and he found some success against that Penn State defense. And I also think he'll have a pretty good game at home versus Notre Dame. I don't have a final score on this game, but I do think Michigan realistically should win this. Playing at home versus Notre Dame offensively, who really Ian Book, his two favorite targets is number 83 and as well as number 84, his tight end. Don't remember their name because I haven't really been looking into Notre Dame that much. Their biggest matchup was the Georgia game, of course. But other than that, Notre Dame hasn't really impressed me. But yeah, with all that being said, my last upset alert pick is the Notre Dame versus Michigan game. If you guys have other ones that you would like to add, or if you don't agree with my upset alert picks, drop them in the comments, tell me why. But with all that being said, links are all in the description for my social media, for my podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts. Or if you want to go to my YouTube and you're on my podcast, all the links are in the description. All that. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day, evening, or night. This is Just Another Critic, signing off. Peace.
Yeah, stay prepared for the up and downs. Life is like a seesaw. Some say it's a bit slow.